Carolyn Baker, and I'm here today with my friend Dean Walker, and we're very excited about a summit that we are offering in the month of September regarding trauma healing in a time of upheaval, in a time when we really need to be creating resilience for ourselves. And our trauma folks that are going to be speaking to us on this webinar are experts in the area, and they're going to be giving us some very helpful tips and guidelines for how we can heal our own trauma and then be more resilient in a world where we're inundated with trauma every single day. Dean, do you have any thoughts on this at the moment?
Yeah, I have
Just a few.
First I've got to say what a real privilege it's been for the past 3 years to be doing this kind of summit with you. They're always about, one way or another, it's about the imminent collapse of human and Earth systems, one way or another. And I consider you one of the premier authors of both books and articles about this kind of these topics. And then you're taking over the Lifeboat Hour from Michael Rupert. You've just got a long history of really grappling with these extraordinary topics and always finding a way back to our hearts, back to our presence, back to our relationships. All of your books reflect that. And I've got to say that this summit is really going right to the heart of what I'm currently grappling with myself and what I believe we're all grappling with, whether we're conscious of it or not. And that is that we are currently in, right now, the largest scale traumatic event in human history.
Yeah.
We are in it, we're experiencing it, again, whether we are aware of it or not. We're on a daily basis getting bombarded with trauma at every level of our lives. So as you can hear in what I'm saying so far, I can't find hyperbole here. It's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us are unaware of, either willfully or unconsciously unaware of this going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is an extraordinary opportunity, this summit, for
Mm-hmm.
people, no matter which end of the spectrum they're on, conscious or unconscious, to become more aware of what is this thing, trauma, and how is it affecting us so grandly, so existentially. So I know that's kind of a big, bold plop into the middle of the space, but that's where it is for me right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're saying all of that. And, I think for some people, the tendency is to say, trauma, what trauma? I'm me traumatized. I mean, I've had a pretty nice life. It's not, I haven't this and I haven't that, and therefore I'm not traumatized. And I would submit, and I've been saying this to you and to other folks for months, even if we're not aware of how we're being traumatized in the culture and in the world right now,
Yeah.
We are being traumatized, and we all need to look at that. Now, I know some folks just can't. Some folks find it really, really overwhelming, and it's just too much for their bandwidth. And consequently, they don't want to talk about it at all. But for those who do, and are kind of running around going, well, I'm not exactly freaking out, but I just have this sense of something's off, there's more, what's going on? What should I be doing, feeling, thinking during this time of catastrophic climate change and collapse of systems? And so this webinar is an ideal place to go, not only for information, but for wisdom and for connection and community with other people.
Yeah. Just very selfishly, I'm always wanting to involve myself with this kind of temporary community to really check in with people to see what are other people who are collapse aware, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Because it's ridiculous for me to think that I've got this handled.
Right.
Even though I've got an extensive personal development history, I've got a pretty good capacity for all this stuff, I know I don't have this handled. And I'm in a constant pursuit of the kind of practices and especially the environments and the relationships that help me build out my capacity for this kind of traumatic input. So this is really the kind of environment that very much feeds me and helps me expand out my capacity. And I'm hoping that that's what we're offering to folks that join us.
Well, it certainly has been the feedback that we've gotten in past webinars.
Yeah.
Folks said, oh my gosh, it's wonderful not to be alone. And, wow, I didn't know a place like this existed. And,
Yeah.
and so it's been like an oasis in the desert for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
We're going to have, maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the speakers. We're going to have,
I was just going to go there.
yeah, Derek Jensen, who's, deep green resistance and has been teaching and writing. Oh my God, what a writer who's been writing and teaching for years and years about all of this. And one of his latest books is The Myth of Human Superiority. And he talks about the animal species and ourselves and our animalness, and what we can learn from nature. Then I had the privilege of interviewing Lisa Van Susteren, who's a psychiatrist in Washington, D.C., who has done wonderful things around the psychological effects of global warming. I also had the opportunity to interview Jiwa Woodbury, who's a Buddhist eco-psychology person and environmental lawyer, about climate trauma. He doesn't even use the word climate change anymore. He uses the word climate trauma and sees it as the biggest picture.
Right. And there are a couple of other folks that I would like to mention. I don't know if we'll have time in this brief video to name them all. I certainly will list them. You'll see a list on the screen and so on. You'll be able to follow that up with the links that are also on the screen in the show notes. But I want to mention Francis Weller, who I think we both have deep respect for, and he is one of the premier voices for a facility with grief to be integrated in all of our lives, and the incredibly important, really central role that takes for anyone trying to face the stressors that are coming at us in life these days. So it's really an extraordinary group of speakers. It's an extraordinary time in human history. And, at the risk of sounding like some sort of car salesman, putting too much emphasis on come in, come join us. I think this is an extraordinary opportunity to really build your capacity. I went to a conference recently, and there was a indigenous elder who joined us in this conference and spoke. And one of the things, I won't say it word for word, I don't remember it word for word, but his main message was, use this time. Do you understand how privileged we are to have this time when there's any semblance of normalcy still remaining? That this is precious time to be really building the skills and doing the inner work, the precious inner work that it takes to be able to expand our capacity to be present and resilient in the face of all this stuff that we get daily. So here's an opportunity, and it's delivered, to you Monday and Wednesday evenings in the month of September. They will all be recorded, and people will be able to watch it 24/7 for months on end afterwards. But we hope that you'll join us for the live Q&A with each of the speakers that's a part of each of those Monday and Wednesday nights in September.
That's the part that's really cool. A lot of folks have webinars, but so often the speakers that they're videoing, that they're showing on the screen, are maybe on the other side of the world at the time. And we're really fortunate because these folks, right after their presentation, they're going to be with us live, flesh and blood breathing human beings to answer your questions.
Yeah. Well, Carolyn, I so appreciate you taking this time with me and for us to be able to get this message out in a good way. And hopefully you folks that are watching it in whatever social media world that you are that you'll consider coming and joining us. There's a lot of good stuff happening. All of it is mentioned on the screen, and then again in the show notes underneath this video.
And
What,
let your friends know too. You
I'm
know,
sorry, say it
let
again.
your friends know too. Bring your friends.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There are a number of people who end up signing up for this kind of summit, and then they'll make it a kind of a study circle. They'll watch together, and then they'll take time to speak about it after each session. So give it some thought. It's a
Yeah.
great way to do that. And you can do that either live during the month of September, or you can do it at your leisure by using the recordings. So I guess one way or another, whether you join us or not, I really invite you all to use this precious time to find your people, practice radical self-care, and really build your capacities to be resilient in the face of and in the midst of these waves of immense challenge, predicament, and trauma.
We look forward to seeing you in September.